Good morning, Wall Street winners. It is Friday, September 13th, and here's what you need to know to start your day. But before we get into it, if you are enjoying these videos, please subscribe to the channel and tell someone who might be interested in learning about what's going on in the market. So today at 8:30, we get the import price index for August, followed by 10 a.m., where we get a preliminary reading of consumer sentiment. So both of these data points will help us as we move towards the discussions on September 18th around rate cuts in the United States. We've seen some news out of Canada that CIBC, one of Canada's larger banks, is anticipating that Canada will begin larger rate cuts, 50 points, or 0.5%, starting in December and likely in January as well. China came out and has made its first change by increasing its retirement age, the first hike since 1978, and it is going up in age for males from 60, retirement at 60 to 63, and then for women from 55 to 58. Now that's white collar women. Oddly enough, they break their women into white collar and blue collar in China, and blue collar women goes from 50 to 55. So that's some interesting changes over there. We had some earnings come in after the close last night. Adobe beat on earnings and revenue, but it lowered slightly, and only very slightly, its future forecast, and it's down 8% in the pre-market. So it is getting slammed for that more conservative outlook, which really did fall in line with what it already said. And if it does beat that going forward, it should escalate and go back up. But it is getting hammered, so it could be a great opportunity to buy some Adobe at a fairly deep discount. And then retailer RH, or Restoration Hardware. They came out with earnings after hours yesterday, and they crushed it, higher than or better than expected earnings, and they are up significantly, about 20% in the pre-market. And it looks like Boeing has potentially settled a strike issue. The strike issue for Air Canada still looming. If we take a look at the futures market, the futures are all in the green, although only slightly, so not significantly, but it is a good start. It still isn't 8:30. It's just after 8 a.m., so we haven't had any of those reads or any of the numbers. If we flip over to our Yahoo Finance app, we can see that crude is up again today. So it's close to $70 a barrel now. So that, you would think, would be a good sign for your crude oil producing stocks. We'll scroll down and see what those look like in a second. The VIX is dropping further. It's now below 17. So that's a positive sign. It did predict that it would get down to this 15 or in the 15 range by the end of the next couple of weeks. And it's definitely getting nearer to that estimate. If we look at health and retail, it's pretty much green on the screen here across the board. So we're seeing some positive movements in the pre-market in the health and retail area. Again, JB Hunt had a hard day yesterday. It was off, although CNR went up yesterday. So bit of a mixed bag. I'm still waiting for both of these to come down, not touching those. If we look at oil pre-market, with crude up 80, 90 cents, 90 cents now, we can see that almost all of our crude is in the green. Con Ed, not part of crude, really a utility. It's in the red. But all of the oil stocks, now they have been beaten up pretty badly, but they are in the green, and I think it's a great buying opportunity for these going into the fall and winter season. Personally, I am holding a couple of these, waiting for them to continue a ride upwards as crude corrects. Then we get down into technology, and we had a downgrade from one analyst yesterday on Micron technology. Got hit rather hard. It was down over 3% or $3.50. Looks like it's recovering a bit today. Remember that Micron comes out with earnings in 12 days, so they still have not released their Q2 earnings. They're one of the last to report, and basically once we hear from Micron, we almost roll into the financials reporting their numbers mid-October. So There is a couple week gap, but it seems like it's pretty much next day. So I'm a big believer in Micron. Micron makes a ton of memory for all kinds of different systems. I talked about this in a video earlier this week. I think it's a really strong buy. It's at a deep discount. It's one of the most oversold semiconductor or chip manufacturing stocks, memory manufacturing stocks out there. I think it's a strong play, especially if you're willing to hold that for 3 to 6 months into the new year. I think you'll do very, very well. We heard from CRM yesterday as well. CRM had an okay day yesterday, up almost $4. They announced something to do with AI integration in their software platform. So you can see it reboots artificial intelligence strategy, and it has made some announcements there. So I'm not exactly sure what that means for their product or technology and how that integrates. I haven't dived into that, but it should bode well long term if that functionality helps make the users, their customers, more efficient and effective in closing sales and getting data entered and maybe cleaning up data within the system or providing potential add-ons to customers and making recommendations to sales teams that they can then have conversations around. Continuing to scroll down, we saw Microsoft is back up almost into the 430s. This was a stock we recommended just about 5 days ago when it was down in the low 400s. ARM was off yesterday, but it's up in the high 139s, and it's up almost $4, $3.50 pre-market. So this is on a bit of a rocket ship recovery trajectory, and lots of volatility with ARM. A couple of videos on that one in the channel if you want to have a look for those. AMD is up in the 150s. This should be a $185 stock. So it's making some positive moves. It's recovering, but it is taking a little longer to do that, certainly longer than ARM. IBM, one of the old pillars, call it the old school IT companies, more of a services company than anything right now, but also a software company. It is up above 210. It's at 211.61, so almost near 212. This was a stock down in the 160s only a few months ago. This has had some really good earnings reports and some strong future forecasts in its last 2 quarters. And it's been gaining traction and momentum. Lam Research yesterday got beat up huge, which is odd because the semis overall did really well, but Lam Research got beat up. It was off $19. Looks like it's going to recover $8 this morning in the pre-market. But this is a stock that I would anticipate by the end of the year is going to be between $900 and $1,000 per share. So I think there's a lot of room for movement in that. Oracle has come out with some positive future guidance in addition to their quarterly report, and that has caused this stock not only to jump in earnings, but also to jump this morning in the pre-market on those future forecast numbers and forward-looking guidance. So that one is up almost, it's $10.50 there, a little more than $10.50. Amazon made an announcement either yesterday or today in regards to making a multi-billion-dollar investment in one of its strategic areas around, I believe it's around its e-commerce delivery and logistics area. That is up slightly pre-market. Tesla has had a few great days over the last couple of weeks. It is off slightly in the pre-market. And Meta yesterday made a move of almost $14 back up into the mid 520 range at 525.60. Looks like it's pulling back a little bit this morning. I love Meta in the low 500s, knowing that by the end of the year it's going to be a $550, $600 stock. Alibaba hit above 85 yesterday. It's looking like it's down $1.37 right now in the pre-market going into the day. Nvidia had a good day, again, continuing its recovery. So if you did buy this pre-earnings and you're still in a red situation or a loss situation on paper, I think you're going to be fine in the next couple of weeks as we get through September 18th and a rate cut. I think it's only going to help to boost Nvidia. And if you're going to look at Nvidia, I have to say, scrolling back up to the top, take a look at NVDL, the Granite Shares ETF, which is a hedged ETF where when Nvidia goes up $1, it basically goes up 2 times that. I would definitely have a look at NVDL. Scrolling down further, TSM was up yesterday, up again today, again making a good recovery. This will be a $185 stock by, I'm going to say, the end of October. Adobe got slammed yesterday. Adobe hit their earnings. They exceeded earnings. They beat on revenue. They beat on earnings. and yet their future forecast for the remainder of the year was off very, very slightly, and they just got hammered in the market. They're off $47 pre-market. This is a buying opportunity in my opinion. I hold some Adobe. I thought earnings and future forecasts were going to be positive. Not sure why they were so conservative on future forecasts. They're making a lot of investments in AI to help optimize the platform, although they really haven't come out and started to communicate a lot of those. So they're clearly still in the works and it's early days, but we know they're working on that. And they're such a dominant player in the space and in the creator economy as well. It's interesting to see them get hit so hard. This company has had a really, really tough year in 2024, but I expect going into 2025, they'll be on much more stable ground. So I think if you're willing to hold this into, say, June of 2025, so better part of a year, I think you're going to do very well with Adobe, especially on this drop. And then we go into financials and look at SoFi. SoFi is back up at almost $7.50. This stock was down in the high sixes just a few days ago, and a recommended buy at that point in time. And it has climbed significantly. We've got JP Morgan, which got hit this week, down in the low 200s. I think this is a steal going into earnings right now at 206. Morgan Stanley at 96. I've been picking some of this up, as well as Goldman I bought it in the 480s. It's down into the 470s. I also bought some in the 490s. So I'm in the red currently, but I know that come mid-October, October 11th or 12th, when earnings come out for these companies are going to jump. The other company that started to come back quietly that's interesting is TD Bank. So TD had a terrible quarter. They allocated billions, a couple $1 billion, I think it was $2.6 billion, to the settlement of the SEC-related charges in the U.S. for money laundering through some of their corrupt employees that were doing things that were clearly offside. And it went down to the mid 70s. It's now, or high 70s. Now it's back up almost into the mid 80s there. So that's making an interesting quiet recovery kind of under the radar. That's where we are on September 13th. Let's hope it's not a ghoulish day, but a good day, and that we end the week on a strong note. Next week, obviously, on the 18th, we've got the Federal Reserve. That's what everybody's waiting for, whether it's 25 points or 50 points. Mixed reviews on that. Most people leaning towards 25 points, but we'll have to see what happens and how that translates. Good luck in the market today. If you're liking these videos, please subscribe to the channel. Leave me a like and a comment. Have a great